the Information Technology Improvements and Modernization Project Oversight Board. First, Secretary, you call the roll.
Senator Chambers Armstrong, Senator Wise,
Present.
Representative All, Representative Hodgson,
Here.
Co-Chair Williams,
Here.
Co-Chair Pratt.
Here. All right, first let's approval of minutes of the September 12th meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second, got a second? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we approved. All right, let's call our first people up for the discussion day. We have Administrative Officer of Courts. Would you please proceed to the desk, introduce yourself for the record, and please proceed, sir.
Well, good morning.
Is your green light on your mic?
Yes. Can you hear me? Is this a little bit better? All right. Thank you. This is a technology board, so we have to have technical difficulties. Well, good morning, Co-Chair, Representative Pratt, Senator Williams, members of the board. My name is Charles Byers. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the Kentucky Court of Justice. And first, I want to say we really appreciate this opportunity to come and be included in this discussion. The judicial branch is frequently overlooked since we don't operate alongside. We do operate separately, and so we appreciate the inclusion. I did watch online the last meeting. I wasn't here, but I watched online with great interest, and I'm going to try to respect the 15-minute allocation and stick to the 8 questions that Jennifer sent over. I do have some notes that I'm going to try to stick to, primarily to limit my comments because I have the proclivity to include too many details. I'm a tech guy and I enjoy talking about technology. So I'm going to try to answer those questions and reserve some time so that I can answer any questions that you may have. I won't promise to have all of the answers to all of your questions, but I will promise to get any of them that I don't have. And before I jump into those questions, I just want to talk about the scope of information technology within the Kentucky Court of Justice. As a separate and co-equal branch of government, my department supports the entire judicial branch. And that support includes a lot of areas that may not be viewed technically as information technology within other agencies. We do support the usual things like computers and servers and data centers and networks. We have a judicial service desk and we have field support. We have an application development team and a project management office. But we also have court services and consulting services. Training and continuing education are actually part of my department. Research and statistics, courtroom recording systems. If you've ever been in one of our courtrooms, my department maintains all of those. We do background checks. We actually have a drive-in window over at our office on Vandelay Drive. So if someone needs a background check right away for an employment opportunity or for housing or for a school field trip, they can just drive around back and right there at the window, someone will take care of them and do that. We have a print shop. And of course, we have information security. I used to say if it has a wire coming out of it, my department takes care of it, but that's not even true anymore. We've grown well beyond that. And in my 13 and a half years at the Kentucky Court of Justice, our department has more than doubled in size. So it's a lot more than a traditional IT shop. In terms of budget, our total technology budget is $36.1 million, the most recent, with 30.2 of that coming from general fund dollars and 5.9 million in restricted funds. Now, this budget is an operating budget, and it is separate from any capital projects, which we don't have a lot of. We don't have a lot of IT capital projects within the Court of Justice. Right now, the only one that we have is the next phase of our e-court program, and I'll discuss that in a little more detail here on the next slide. The vision for the Kentucky e-court program started in 2010. Then Chief Justice Minton declared that we would fundamentally change the practice of law in the Commonwealth. We brought in the National Center for State Courts. We brought in the Commonwealth Office of Technology to look at what we were doing and look at our technology. And they declared that our trial court case management system was both technically and functionally obsolete. And so a $63 million budget was developed. And in 2011, it was approved through the Capital Planning Advisory Board, but the funding was not appropriated. Agency bond funding of $28.1 million for Phase 1 was appropriated in 2013 as part of the regular session House Bill 238. And so we began a gradual process of turning the battleship, as I like to say. CourtNet 2.0 was developed, which is our online court record system, and we added a lot of enhancements, primarily at request of our attorney partners, to make it a little bit more valuable to them, and that has been a great success. In December of 2013, we introduced electronic filing to the courts in Kentucky, and by October 2015, it was available statewide. And after years of growing adoption and acceptance, we just recently began mandating electronic filing in some case types. It's a process. It takes some time to get people to use that. So substantial progress has occurred, but the underlying case management system remains outdated. It's well over 20 years old at this point. Then in 2022, regular session House Bill 244 provided an injection of $38 million from the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. And we are grateful for that funding because it's going to allow us to accelerate our decade of gradual change and springboard our courts to an electronic record. Our plan is to buy off the shelf, as other states have done with success. And upon completion, we will have gained efficiencies, improved access, and leave our courts on a more sustainable footing. And I think that's what this is all about. So we definitely appreciate this opportunity. On the next slide here, you'll see a high-level overview of our AOC data center. It's over at Vandelay Drive. And this is where most of our legacy applications are hosted. As a separate branch of government, most of our systems are by design separate. For example, our users don't have ky.gov email addresses, but we maintain our own domain. We have our own Microsoft 365 tenant. We have everything separate. So most of our applications are hosted in-house or in a vendor cloud, okay? Like we don't have applications that are hosted over at COT. We do have some replicated systems that we have over there for disaster recovery, which is really amounts to us renting some rack space in their environment. And so we replicate everything over there such that if something catastrophic were to happen at Vandelay, we could fail over to that. I won't call it a hot site. It's more of a warm site. It would take some work, but we could run from it if we had to. And then we do some tertiary backups in the cloud to take care of that. So we have not transitioned from COT to cloud services since we don't rely on most of their core offerings as the Court of Justice. Likewise, the alternate data center is not something that we use. This next slide provides a very brief overview of information security within the Court of Justice. I never knew when I went to college all those years ago that at some point in my life, a third to half of my time would be spent worrying about information security. But that's kind of where we are today. I often tell people when I think about information security, I sleep like a baby, and that means I wake up every 2 hours and cry. And that's just kind of what it's like. So the AOC does have a small but dedicated team of information security professionals. I think 4 maybe 4. And all of those costs are included in our ITS budget. We have invested and we continue to invest in security policies, security systems, and security monitoring. We have established an information security governance committee that meets regularly and reports to our audit oversight committee. A few years ago, we developed within the Court of Justice an internal audit department, and so we report to them on a quarterly basis as we continue to track some information security items. Each quarter, our backup and recovery team report on the health of those systems, which includes restoration testing. In reality, those systems get exercised on a regular basis. Somebody will delete a file or something, and then they need it back. And so they kind of get exercised in production. And so we are working, though, within the Court of Justice, we've been quietly working on a continuity of operation plan, a more comprehensive thing. We learned some lessons from the pandemic. I think we did a pretty good job of navigating that, but we could have been better prepared. And so not knowing what the next big thing might be that we would have to deal with, we're working on a very comprehensive continuity of operations plan. As a byproduct of that, we're going to be updating our information technology disaster recovery plans. And so the timing for all of this is perfect. So for us to do that and then go through this exercise to catalog all of those systems, to go through all of that data and document that is going to be really, really helpful. So we're actually looking forward to it. I know you may not hear that from a lot of people. Remote work. And I know this is, some people feel strongly one way and some people feel strongly another way. And I really don't feel strongly one way or the other on this. But the remote work options within the Kentucky Court of Justice are going to vary based on the role. Some jobs simply cannot be accomplished remotely, while others are very well suited for that. So within information technology, the service desk, hardware support, print shop, those jobs need to be accomplished in the office or on site with the user. Some other jobs like software engineering or database administration are really well suited for remote work. To request a remote work accommodation, each worker must work with their manager to develop and implement the appropriate tools to manage and measure productivity. Our preference is for each manager to engage with their employees regularly and monitor productivity through completed work. Managing a remote employee may take some effort, but that engagement facilitates productivity, and that's true whether they're in the office or not in the office. So it's just different. It's not really, it's the same management and oversight that needs to be accomplished. It just needs to be done a little bit differently with some of those people remote. Honestly, as you all have been using Zoom and Teams, as has the whole world since the pandemic, what I find oftentimes is I go to the office and I'm in a meeting with people who are also in their office right down the way, and we're doing it online. And so it's really identical whether they're in the office or not in the office. In terms of cost savings, largely, I think that the cost savings that we have recognized have been in the form of reduced travel expenses. So if I have a court interpreter, for example, who doesn't have to drive from Frankfurt to Louisville to interpret for a trial, if they can do that remotely, then we avoid that travel cost. And of course, the time that they would spend in the vehicle while they travel. And that adds up pretty quickly. So there has been cost savings there. And there's a little bit of a soft savings. I struggle to figure out how to quantify it. But when you have reduced turnover and you don't have to retrain people and you can retain them longer, there is a savings that comes from that. And what we have found as the world has changed, especially in technology, being able to offer remote or even a hybrid where they come into the office sometime and work remotely some of the time has allowed us to expand the geographic area that we're appealing to. So we have a lot of people that work for us in Frankfurt, but they don't live in Frankfurt. Some of them come in once a week. Some of them come in 2 days a week, 3 days a week. Some of them may not come in at all, depending on that role. I will say that our HR department is currently reviewing all of our job descriptions, and they're adding language to those job descriptions regarding the potential for or non-potential for remote work, so that people know going in whether or not that's going to be something that they're interested in. I never thought I would see the day where people would turn down a job if they have to come to work, but that's kind of where we are. And finally, we get to the funding and governance question. I think the formation of this board is a great start. I think it's a very good, the timing is perfect, and I appreciate what you all are trying to do. I think not just for the Kentucky Court of Justice, but for the Commonwealth as a whole, recognizing the risks inherent with many of our legacy applications is a really good start. Much like the Capital Planning Advisory Board has somewhat shifted their focus from new construction to more of a focus on building maintenance. I think prioritizing funding for technical currency as opposed to always new is a really good improvement. When I came to the Kentucky Court of Justice, I inherited a lot of what I call technical debt, and unfortunately, we still have most of it. It's tough when you always have new requirements coming in. I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this new. It doesn't give you the time to go back and address the things that are underneath. Within the Court of Justice, the chief has appointed a committee along with several targeted subcommittees to provide technology governance and oversight. And it does work pretty well. So when we kicked off our e-court program, the chief appointed an e-court program management committee, and that includes people inside the court and outside the court to provide oversight and guidance and just have a little bit of transparency into what we're doing. But what we realized very quickly is a lot of it gets detailed. So we appointed some subcommittees. So an electronic filing subcommittee, a trial court case management subcommittee, an appellate subcommittee, et cetera. But it has worked really, really well. As to funding, again, we remain grateful for the $38 million that was appropriated last year as part of House Bill 244 to complete our e-court initiative. But we originally requested that in 2011. And the legacy system that needed to be replaced back then still needs to be replaced today. So that's a lot of risk that we all assumed for a decade that we rather would not have. Now, we all recognize budget realities. I get that. But we do appreciate this focus. We appreciate House Bill 395 and this board and everything that you all are trying to do. The last question had to do about statutes that impede implementation of software as a service or third-party packages. We really don't, that doesn't really apply to the judicial branch. I don't know of anything there. We make tweaks along the way. We'll get to some things in regard to electronic signature as it's appropriate, but I think we generally navigate that pretty well. And so with that, I hope I've answered the questions that you had, and I'm happy to try to answer any additional questions.
I think Senator Williams would like to ask you a question, sir.
Yes, sir.
On that 2011 legacy system, what's your path to replace it? Are you looking at development? You're looking at a package that can replace it? What path?
Yes. So thank you, Senator. We are currently in development for a request for proposal on that we hope to push out the door maybe December, maybe January. Our intention is to bring in a vendor into this space. And for full disclosure, before I came to the Kentucky Court of Justice, I worked for one of those vendors. I worked for a company that developed and sold software into the courts, not Kentucky courts, but lots and lots of other courts. We were statewide in, I think, 14 states, and we had a lot of the big courts, Orange County in California, Maricopa in Phoenix. So you had single counties that were bigger than the Commonwealth. But with the continued difficulty that we have attracting and retaining technical talent in Kentucky and the turnover that just seems to be inherent to where we are. I'm not attracting career government technologists like you might have 10, 20 years ago. And so we feel that by getting on a vendor provided solution, it's more sustainable. Like, I'm not getting any younger. And so when I retire, not to say anything, but it's going to be tough to hire somebody to come in and do this job. And I've got lots of people on my team who are very much the same way. So our plan is to issue that RFP as soon as it's ready. We had originally said we were going to do it in October, but it is October.
Can I ask a follow-on question on
Yes.
that? Yes. On the RFP,
Yes.
do you go through Finance Administration, COT, or do you do the RFPs with your own branch? How do you do these RFPs?
So it's a good question. So the RFP will come out of our own branch. So within our own finance department, those people are involved. That governance committee that I mentioned earlier is going to be involved. What we've been doing in preparation for that is there is a selection committee that's already been put together. So I've got clerks and judges and folks from the AOC. We, a couple of weeks ago, took a group to Kansas to visit with the courts out there, to go in and see some systems in action. We've got some calls scheduled to follow up with the courts in Oregon, Texas. I'm actively involved in the Court Information Technology Officers Consortium. I didn't get to pick the name, but it's a group that the National Center for State Courts put together for state court CIO. So I regularly am in communication with my peers from all over the country and really all over the world.
Okay, just one final question, if I could. And so for these third-party vendors, do you require SOC 2 audits, and do you do SOC 2 audits on your own in-house systems that you're operating?
So we're getting there. One of the things that we've been trying to do, we've adopted the CIS information security controls, the Center for Information Security. They're just a little bit more conversant than some of the other information security frameworks. And so that is something that we do depending on the vendor and depending on the breadth of their services. This would absolutely fall into that. And so we would ask that of those people. In terms of certifying our own systems, it's a process. And so what we do is we look at an application and we say, what is the expected life cycle of this application? Certainly as part of this exercise to report to this board, we want to catalog all of those systems and talk about all of those aspects of those things.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good.
Thank you. John?
Yes, sir. I have a question. This app you're talking about, is it an all-inclusive case management e-court solution for the primary part of your business, or is it just one of your portfolio that you're talking about replacing?
It's a little bit of both, as I understand the question. So that when we originally envisioned the KY e-court program, and I call it a program because it's a collection of projects, we anticipated that we would replace our trial court case management system, our online access system. Whether we replaced them with a single app or multiple apps was yet to be determined, and it really still is, depending on the results of our RFP. We wanted to bring electronic filing to the Commonwealth. We wanted to upgrade our aging infrastructure and bring in a electronic content management system so that those files could move from paper to electronic. And so some of those, if we could get them all from one vendor, we would, but we want to look at each of them individually and decide where we can get the best value, the best integration, and the sustainability of that.
Okay, so it was over a decade ago that you thought it was going to cost you
$63 million.
and now you've got $38 million to spend. Is that right? So
yeah, but we got a little bit. So in 2013 we got some of the money, and we've already addressed our infrastructure. We've already purchased an appellate case management system. We developed our own electronic filing system, which we may or may not continue with, but we'll see as a result of this RFP process. It'll be tight. We have learned to stretch every dollar. And so we will have some additional costs, certainly, that go along with that. But I think we have enough money there to satisfy our vendor obligations, okay? And so the trick will be to take some of the people who have been working on systems that we have developed and maintained internally and have them working on the integration and the interfaces and all of those things that go along with this. It's we can do it.
Thank you, Mr. Byers. I got a couple questions. Again, one thing you mentioned, you got off-the-shelf system, and I'm all for that when it saves the taxpayers money. You also touched on backups. Are they done daily, automatically, or weekly? How do the backups work?
So in terms of backups, there are different backup schedules for different sets of data. So, for example, with our trial court case management system that exists out in the counties, where they still have a local database in the county, which is most of them, those are replicated back to our data center every 15 minutes. And so those get backed up really every 15 minutes. Now they get backed up again every night when they move off to an additional system, but they get backed up every 15 minutes. So it would be, at a minimum, everything would be getting backed up on a daily basis, but some things are much more frequently than that.
Thanks, sir. And also, I just got a report on data breaches from the state of Kentucky. You guys were not on it. Are you that good, or are you just not required to report it?
It's probably neither. It's probably neither of those things. I've learned to never say never, in terms of data breach. Having many good friends who have been victims of data breaches in other states, they didn't know when they were. And so we could be breached right now. Now, I don't believe that we are, but I'll say it's a little bit of luck and maybe some clean living that has kept us out of trouble.
You mentioned remote workers.
Yes, sir.
Again, how do you keep that secure? I mean, they're working at home where they may have doing other things at home. How do you keep that secure coming back to your system?
In terms of the data that they're working with, the applications
Yes.
that they're working with. So we have all of the same security controls that would be in place whether they were in the office or not. So they'll have to do a multi-factor authentication when they log in, where you have to, you log in with your username and your password, and then it's either going to send something to your phone or it's going to ask you, additional information and stuff like that. So we're pretty good at the authentication part. We try to encrypt the data as it goes back and forth. For a lot of our sensitive things, though, they really don't. The data never comes to their device that they have at home. Most of them are taking their Court of Justice computer home with them and working from that. Although there are some things that you can do apart from that, we're tightening that, And so in the future, I think you'll see less of people using their personal devices to connect to work. It's actually cheaper just to give them a device and have it be more secure than it is to make them jump through hoops and then trust that they're going to maintain those things. So it's an ongoing process. It's a very good question.
Thanks, sir. I think that's all the questions the panel has. Thank you for your presentation.
All right. Well, you've got my email address. If you have additional questions, we'd be happy to respond to them.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Next, we have Cabinet of Health and Family Services. Please approach the desk, introduce yourself for the record, and please proceed.
Hi, good morning. Can you all hear me okay? Usually I'm really loud and I don't need a microphone. My name is Jennifer Harp. I'm with the Office of Application Technology Services within the Cabinet for Health and Family Services. We did not prepare a slide deck today, so if there's anything I need to do with this, please let me know. Just really quickly, a little bit about our office is we do provide application support for all of CHFS. We provide project management, the software development lifecycle activities from design, development, implementation. We manage our technology roadmap. We do also provide IT vendor management and oversight. So any of our applications that are vendor supported, we do manage those vendors. We do some IT security and policy and audit support in-house as well in partnership with COT. We have our own application help desk. For any of the applications that are in-house, we do support the help desk. And then we are the cabinet liaison with COT. I'm sure you're very familiar with the cabinet, but at a high level, some of the programs that we support are, of course, Medicaid, all of the Medicaid IT systems, the partner portal with Medicaid, our community-based services, so our integrated eligibility and enrollment system is in-house support or vendor-supported IT we oversee. It is an IT application. We do own it in-house. We also have our child welfare, child care, prescription drug monitoring program, all of your various Department for Public Health applications, from vital records to disease surveillance. I'm sure I've missed some. Child support is also under the cabinet, our health information exchange. I could probably go on. And I'm going to do my best to not speak in acronyms. We do that internally in the cabinet, so I'm going to try not to here. But if I do, please let me know. Mentioning that we do application support, we do partner with COT. COT provides our desktop support, the network support, any of the infrastructure for our applications that are hosted on-prem at COT, the server storage, disaster recovery. They also provide our telecom and print services. Going in line with the questions, as far as our budget, IT operating costs are included in each of our agency's budget and the capital or the cabinet's overall operating budget. We do have an opportunity to seek federal funds for some of our applications, and when those opportunities arise, we do try to get as much federal dollars as possible. IT budget, capital project budgets are requested in addition to our annual technology budgets. Ongoing maintenance and operations are part of the operating budgets. We generally look at capital projects where applicable for the enhancements and modernization efforts. As far as housing for our systems, we're kind of various. COT does support. So where they play a role is where they operate the infrastructure and we run the applications are for a lot of our in-house developed applications. Most of those are .NET. Maybe a couple vendor solutions are supported at COT. We do not have any in-house. That's not currently permitted. Agency managed cloud, yes, we do have some agency managed cloud. An example of that would be our Salesforce marketing cloud solution, various apps on the app exchange that we use. Those are managed in-house. Vendor managed cloud, yes, we also have some of those. So a lot of it depends on what the application is. And we do work internally with COT with our business partners to determine what is the best approach for hosting. Transitioning from COT to the cloud. So we have done some of that. We are in the process of some of that. So we look to implement cloud solutions or migrate to the cloud when it makes sense. We are working closely with COT on a proof of concept for some of our on-prem to cloud migrations. An example of that is for our disease surveillance solution, formerly on-prem at COT. We had just recently transitioned it to the cloud because we did this in partnership and as a proof of concept, and it's just happened within the last couple of weeks. We have not completely identified all of the cost savings. So those are things that we'll also be monitoring. Back in 2020, we did move a self-service portal for our integrated eligibility enrollment solution from .NET on-prem to the cloud. But because that was part of a larger modernization effort, we didn't look at the cost of on-prem hosting versus cloud hosting. It wasn't separate. Alternate data center, yes, we use it. We do find that it's valuable to have an alternate location, geographic location for any unforeseen issues. And as we move applications to the cloud, obviously disaster recovery has to transition as well. So we'll work closely with COT for any of the currently on-prem supported to cloud whenever we do get there. Security, COT does support the enterprise security. We do pay an enterprise security assessment as part of the COT bill. COT is responsible for the cybersecurity, and that's an annual cost. We also request additional funding to further enhance our security. from our internal agencies, federal partners. We know that the data that we support, that we have within the cabinet is very sensitive data. So we do have our own internal security team and audit and compliance team within the IT office. Their job is to look at the COT policies and even be more detailed, right, to where it's going to support us and going to support the services that we provide. I heard your last question about SOC 2. All of our vendors are required to do annual SOC 2 audits. We do receive those reports. We look to COT for any of our on-prem hosted. However, we do penetration testing. We do require penetration vulnerability scans from our vendor partners. For those in-house supported and managed applications, we have internal penetration team that does that. And if we need to, there's a master agreement that allows us to utilize services from a vendor to do some additional testing. Our backup and recovery. So yes, we do those for the on-prem COT hosted applications. We partner with COT on our annual DR exercises or disaster recovery. They are responsible for all of the infrastructure, and they handle all of the backups and recovery efforts. For those applications not hosted by COT, we do work with the appropriate vendor to ensure that those are also done regularly. Backups do happen daily for our on-prem applications. The latest one for our integrated eligibility enrollment solution was back in July of this year. It was a successful DR exercise with our production live environment. In May, this past May, we also did our mainframe DR exercise with COT and other cabinet agencies. And then last year, November of 2022, we did DR exercises on all of our shared applications or shared server applications that COT supports. So we have another one coming up here soon. Remote working, yes, we do have remote working. Most of our IT office within CHFS is remote. We do have folks that choose to come in regularly. We do have folks that come in a hybrid schedule. A lot of it is as needed. This actually started at the onset of COVID, and we've put in process and procedures to be able to continue to work. We see a significant need for it, and we have a proven track record. We're able to have skilled resources outside of the Frankfurt area, right, who maybe don't want to drive in. One of the things that we did see during COVID is as we're trying to hire or even continuing to retain our current resources is they've got another job offer and they get to work at home for that one. So I think it's a huge benefit for us to be able to have that as a factor for working in IT. We are satisfied with the tools that we have. We use Teams as our primary communication method. We also have some other internal tools that we can use that we've developed for tracking of the work that is being done as well. As far as savings from remote work, I mean, we were able to release some buildings, so there was some lease space, but again, it's kind of not, you can't really quantify it. Being able to keep individuals because they can work from home versus going to a commercial company because they can work from home is a huge benefit. They feel more valued, right? We do find that they're more readily available. If folks do have to go, to a doctor, take care of a kid, then there's other times that they can work. So we do see that as a huge benefit within CHFS. Around funding and governance for technology, improved funding would allow for us to continue to look at innovations and modernization. We are wanting to assess our tools, right? Just because we put a tool in place in 1 year doesn't mean it's going to be the best tool in 3 or 4 or 5 years. We need to continue to assess those tools. We need to say, is this still the right tool for us? Is there another tool out there that provides more benefit to us, to the Kentuckians we serve, and to our workforce? We also need to look at modernization. I mean, that's huge, right? As soon as you put something and you go live, it's already a legacy that next day, that next minute. So being able to continue to look at our IT, not just the infrastructure piece of it, but our applications, the tools, how users interact with it is important ongoing. Process improvement. There's always always an ability to improve our processes. Training, workforce, being able to network, being able to see some of the go to IT conferences, talk to other state partners, right? So you're not just talking to those vendors that are coming in and going off everything that they say that's out there, but being able to talk to states saying, what have you learned in this? How did you do this? Has been really beneficial for CHFS and for our IT shop. We do understand how to accomplish growth and modernization. We collaborate with our Secretary's office, with all of our internal cabinet agencies, as well as with COT to identify those opportunities. We do also fall under the same rules as all of the other cabinets as far as the biennial budget process goes and the capital project process. There's certain timelines for those. IT is always changing. There's always something new that's coming up. There's always a need. So sometimes having a little bit more flexibility would be beneficial. And then CHFS follows and is required to follow the procurement rules and our COT guidance. I think
Thank
that
you.
is it. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Representative Houston?
Yes, you mentioned Salesforce. Curious as to how big of a percentage of your application support and development is outside contractors like Salesforce. Is it just, I assume it's not just the app, it comes with people and programmers and integrators and stuff?
So I can go get you what that breakdown is. Some of our larger solutions, like our integrated eligibility and enrollment solution, there's a couple pieces of it. The front end, where users interact, is on the Salesforce platform. Deloitte is our vendor that does support that. There is a piece of that is actually supported, that the marketing cloud piece is supported in-house with our OATS staff. And we continue to look for ways to bring those pieces back in-house where it makes sense. The back end of our eligibility system is .NET and it is currently housed at COT. But I can go get you that percentage breakdown if you'd like.
Yes, thank you.
Senator Williams?
Do you have a legacy systems you're passing off to the Attorney General? Was that your system?
Child support system, yes.
Sir. How is that going? Is that system in need of coming up to date? Had you looked at it? What are they going to have to do that you know about?
Sure. So actually our child support system, also called CASIS in case you hear it, is on the mainframe. It had been a capital project request since before I started with the state, maybe before I was born. It was a very high dollar amount. I can tell you that it was recommended to us to decrease the dollar amount to have an opportunity for funding some time back. We took an opportunity, and as we could internally, we would take pieces from the mainframe and we would try to modernize it over the last 10 to 15 years. So even those have become legacy, but we've moved them more to web-based. There's still the majority of the solution is on the mainframe. We did receive approval in the last budget, which is great, to work on that system. We are going to be releasing an RFP, hopefully soon, but because it's an open procurement, that's all I think I'm allowed to say.
Thank you, Ms. Hart. I know that CHFS is a large cabinet, and as you went through everything you all do, it's interesting. Do you all actually have an IT budget that you all look at every year or request?
So
or
it
wish?
is sure. So it is part of the agency's and overall cabinet budget. We do work with them, understand their needs from an IT perspective, and ensure that gets put in as part of the budget.
Do you know that number off the top of your head?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay. All right. One thing I hear a lot from other cabinets is, especially as many functions you got under it, is each agency able to talk to each other when appropriate, or is it you have to walk down the hallway and talk to someone to get that information?
So we have put in quite a bit of partnerships even internally within the cabinet. I'm assuming that's what you're asking, is internally in the cabinet and all of our various agencies. We do have quite a few integrations depending upon the solution. We do push for that, right? We would like to, instead of having information in the same information having to come to 10 different places, let's share it. The secretary in the last couple of years did implement kind of a data share agreement, which has been very useful for our cabinet. So it allows us an easier, smoother process for agencies to be able to share that data, so we can integrate systems, so we can share data across all of the systems, because we do find that that is a huge benefit, not only to our workforce, but also to the Kentuckians. If folks can go one location and enter in information and that be shared across other programs, that helps them.
What percentage of your workers are remote?
From an IT,
Yeah.
over 90%.
And that's what I hear from a lot of companies, is IT is done remote. So that, again, that's not alarming, just want to know. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for your testimony, and thank you for coming here today, ma'am.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Next, we have Education and Labor Cabinet. Please approach the table, introduce yourself for the record, and please proceed. Make sure your green light's on.
Yes, sir. I'm Chris Lindsay. I'm the Executive Director for IT Services within Education and Labor Cabinet.
Good morning. My name is Kenneth Jones. I joined the state about 8 years ago. My background, I spent 27 years in the Air Force, started out in programming, ended up in the intelligence schoolhouse, and we helped stand up the first AF cyber and cyber operations stuff. When I took the uniform off, my parents wanted to know where we were going to go. I used to tell all my team I was from the Air Force because I spent more time doing that than I lived anywhere as a young man. So we actually researched. I was born in San Diego, grew up in the Los Angeles, Orange County area. So we moved our entire family once we decided that Kentucky was going to be our future home. So my parents sold their home, my grandmother sold her home, my mother-in-law. So we moved the entire family out here after we did some research and chose because of the cost of living and the opportunities here. When I first arrived, I joined the Transportation Cabinet. There was an opportunity as a branch manager to run an application development shop in the IT shop over there, and that was one of my favorite all-time jobs. So I thought the opportunity to go work with some developers firsthand and do some more good stuff for service would be where I wanted to be. That led to other opportunities, and before I knew it, I kept getting promoted, and then I was the Deputy Executive Director. And then 2 years ago, when the pandemic hit, they asked me if I would come over to the Labor Cabinet and help the Labor Cabinet with some of the stuff. And so that's how I ended up in the Labor Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you for your service to our country.
It was my privilege.
And good morning, Chairman Pratt. Good to see you again, members of the board. My name is Jordan Jones, and I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Legislative Services for the Education and Labor Cabinet.
I'm sorry you had to follow that. That was
I know, not as cool.
All right. Thank you for having us. I appreciate your time and attention to IT. I think that's a rather important topic that doesn't always get covered in a lot of the sessions and a lot of the discussions. As you're aware, the Education and Labor Cabinet is the combination of the Education and Workforce Development Cabinet along with the Labor Cabinet that happened about a year and a half ago. So with that merger, we ended up with the unemployment insurance system, the workforce development systems, workers' claims, workplace standards. There's some OSHA applications. There's Commission on Proprietary Education, Deaf and Hard of Hearing, vocational rehab. So we have a lot of different applications within our cabinet that we handle. So you want to get into the questions? We don't have an IT budget for the cabinet. So like CHFS, we are part of the agency's budgets. So we work with them for every budget cycle, make sure that they're aware of what the IT costs will most likely be for their agency. Our capital projects are outside of the budget, so we always request those outside of the normal operating standard budget. We do the ongoing maintenance and support as part of our normal agency's budget. Those aren't appropriated separately. We have several legacy applications, most of which you're probably familiar with is mainframe for the UI system hosted at COT. We do have some agency managed cloud like Salesforce and AWS, which is Amazon. We do have some customer supported stuff like our AWS phone system. That's also a vendor managed system through Amazon. We have only transitioned the phone system from COT to the Amazon solution, which is cloud-based. We did that in the beginning of the pandemic, and we've continued to build on that. So that's turned out to be a very cost-effective way to manage the call center and get it on the newer cloud-based platforms that are available to us today. We do use the alternate data center. We find that to be very beneficial to have it in a different geographic location. We participate in COT's disaster recovery exercises, and like CHFS said, we did the mainframe back in May, and last November we did our web services. So we're due to have that in probably November or December. We'll do another disaster recovery stand-up with them. Our systems are backed up daily and stored and handled by COT. For security and hackers, we do depend on COT and utilize their services. I think David Carter was here last month, and you guys are very familiar with the expertise that COT has. So we leverage that option quite a bit, but we do implement other things like multi-factor, Google reCAPTCHA, you know, that great little box that you guys get where you have to click how many different stoplights or stop signs you see to make sure that you're a real human. You love that, don't you?
I'm not a computer.
Exactly. So we use that in addition to the COT services to make sure that we're talking to a real human and doing all that we can to make sure that we're as secure as we can be. Remote, we follow the personnel cabinet where we're 3 days in the office and 2 at home. So that's a little different than probably most of what you're hearing from the other agencies right now. Are we satisfied with how we manage them? Those 2 days a week we are. We use the Teams tools. We use Jira for tickets. So we have lots of internal tools. And we meet regularly with those people on our 2 days remote so that we know that they're online, we know that they're working, and we give them tasks to complete. Quantify the savings is kind of hard since we are 3 days in the office, 2 at home. So there's probably not a lot monetarily that we could claim as a savings. But allowing those 2 days home does help us keep some of our workforce from finding other jobs elsewhere that would require them to be in the office 5 days a week. Funding and governance of technology. We're always gathering feedback from our agencies within our cabinet, and we're trying to work with them to modify some of their solutions, modernize some of their solutions, find some efficiencies in their solutions. Data sharing, as you mentioned in the last one, between systems is one area where we like to find an efficiency or modernize a system where we can. We do feel we have a clear chain of command for governance. We We do like to utilize the COT system as well in that area for our agency's leadership with collaboration on how we could better do something like a project management office or analysis type of details. Are we satisfied with our funding? At the current time, we are. We go out, we talk to our agencies, ask them what improvements, what modernizations they'd like to perform, and then we work with them to figure out what they need, what it would cost, how we could buy off the shelf if that's the best solution. So we talk to the vendor community to see what we could do in that area, and that allows us to get a cost estimate that we can give our agencies to ask for in their budget proposals. With that, I think I'm ready for questions.
Senator Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, your AWS phone system. How did you procure that? Can you quantify the cost savings on it?
Sure.
Anyway.
The way we got that was a recommendation from COT as the pandemic began. So we reached out to Amazon, and in just a matter of days, we had that stood up and ready to go. And then it was just a function of training the users on how to use that system. As far as cost goes, it'd be hard to say because we just stood it up during COVID, so we didn't have anything to truly compare it to at the time. But
So have you gotten rid of your old desk set system then?
We are rolling that across the cabinet. So the desire is to go to what we call IP, which is your phone system as a soft phone instead of the hard phone on your desk. So we're rolling that across through some of our agencies. So that means we get rid of the hard telephone line coming into the buildings, coming into the desk, and there is a cost with that, depending on the location and the size.
Very good. And so with your remote, the way you're doing 3-2, so I'm presuming that we've got an office sitting there 2 days a week empty, or do you hot desk?
Well,
Do you have the opportunity?
yeah, we do hot desk. We call that hoteling.
Hoteling.
So we are part of the new building downtown that was in place of the tower. So we are right in the middle of our agency and all of our agencies in the cabinet. So there was really not a space savings because we still are paying lease for that space. So we are just coming in 3 days and hoteling the other 2 days.
And like others have said with IT, there are definite benefits. I mean, the whole concept of the cloud is remote work. It's the fact that you can get IT services from somewhere else. But there's also value in team dynamics and seeing each other and being in the same room. Line of sight taskings is what I used to call them in the military. When somebody's walking down the hall, you're like, ooh, I've been meaning to talk to you. Can you take care of this? So those things. And so I find that with my development teams, those folks like some time together. So the concept of hoteling works well for us because some of those folks want to come in periodically to have that time. So having some time together works really well, and not every job lends itself to telecommuting. But there are approaches as a whole the state could take to save money, but these are approaches that are challenges altogether. In the D.C. world years ago, when they were trying to do that, they were building telecommute facilities outside Washington, D.C. to allow people to go partway into work and save on building space and those kind of things.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I know you'd be amazed, but I got some questions. You have anything, John? I'll let Mr. Hodgson go first. Representative Hodgson.
I was just going to ask you about the UI system. Where are you with that?
So it's an open procurement,
Okay.
and that's probably about as far as we can go with that comment without getting ourselves in trouble.
Okay. But funded, basically,
It is.
to replace it? Okay.
Actually, he stole my thunder on one of my questions was, please tell me we have a solution to the UI system that we've been talking about since 2017 when I came into office. Again, I know you can't say much, but it desperately needs to be fixed.
Yes, sir. We
One
are
thing
in the
too, and
process.
the other presenter was the fact you said you have no budget. That's part of our process here. We need to get those information so we can plan appropriately for your computer budget needs as we go forward, because we're going to be making recommendations to the Appropriation Revenue Committee as to what, how, and why. I know that in workforce development, we have 3 different groups working on this. We have Kentucky Chamber, we have the ad districts, and we have the labor cabinet. Can your computers talk to each other and work with each other to make sure it's efficiently done when we go out and try to get our workforce participation up, which is 47th in the nation, I believe, right now, or 48th, depending on what number you want to use. How does that work, or does it work?
Well, they were originally all siloed systems that we're trying to bring together. So part of the modernization effort will be to get them to share data, talk to one another. So as we modernize the systems and move them to the newer platforms, yes, that is one of the requirements that we would put in any upgrade or RFP moving forward.
Good, thank you. And go back to your phone systems. I will tell you, I've had a lot of complaints from people when they call about UI or whatever, and the complaint is the same one. I can never talk to a human. Is there a system in there where they can talk to a human? Or again, when I hear that complaint, it could be like me who doesn't know how to figure out the system. B, is there someone who's actually available for them to talk to if they need to?
And we have a call center staffed with several employees, I don't have the number, that answer calls all day long. So if they're not getting through, maybe we could look into that. If it's some of your constituents, we could take a look at that for you.
My constituents and ones outside my commission, not constituents. So that basically all my questions all said and done. Like I said, I will say that hopefully we will see a new UI system up and going. I know you can't comment on it, but again, I think the long time ago was the fact that you all are still running DOS. That was something that was taught before I was in college, which was a couple years ago. So also we have Senator Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on that call center, where is that located at? If someone does call in, is that located here? Is that out of state, or?
That is all Kentucky located.
It is. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Senator Williams.
Yeah, follow up on that. So do you have data? I mean, most call centers I know, they can tell when their calls are being overrun, their people. They can tell how long people are on hold. They can tell how many drop calls they have. Do you have a report that shows your on-hold time, your drop calls time, your in voicemail purgatory time? Can you provide that? A sample month, perhaps, or some time period? Do you have
Sure,
those reports available?
We have all kinds of statistics that we could provide for you. Yes, sir.
I mean, that comes right out of your call center
Yes,
software,
sir.
right?
It's
right.
basically the same software Amazon uses for their own customer centers.
So if you're saying Amazon, who I literally had a problem with just yesterday, I talked to an AI system before I got to talk to a human. Is that the same process? I'm not criticizing. I'm just asking for my own information.
Sure. Our version is not quite that sophisticated. There's not an AI component involved in ours. So it's a bunch of actual human beings you could talk to.
Actually, after about 3 questions, they said, we're connecting you with someone. So they could tell I was completely, I was off the grid as far as what that AI system could hold.
Sure. Should have hit 0 and gone straight to the operator.
Yes, sir. Other than that, I think that's all the presenters we have today. Thank you guys for coming today. Again, I would urge you to be thinking about a budget. That's what this committee is part of what we're here for, is be able to recommend the Appropriation Revenue Committee what, how, and why. So that's going to be very important in the future. I'm sure we'll bring you back again here shortly to talk about this again, but be coming with those. Also in your packet, there's a correspondence submitted by the Legislative Research Commission. As you know, they're not allowed to testify in front of us, but they did answer some, not all of our questions. Again, look forward to working with you guys as this committee proceeds. Thank you for your testimony. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? So moved. Thank you guys for your time today.
Thank you.